top sa imuhang life. Inana ra siya. Pero once, with regards to this particular topic, since ang bata man gud kinahanglan og pagtutok mo kay ang influence, dali ra jud kayo tanan sa ilaha. So, moving on, excuse me, delinquent peers. So the weight of empirical evidence indicates the youth who are loyal to delinquent friends belong to a gang. Have bad companions and otherwise involved deviant peers are the ones who likely to commit a crime. Then the gangs here, these are the youth who collectively engage in delinquent behavior. So we have the here interstitial group. Sabo kayo ng iro sa silingan. Delinquent groups that fills a crack in social fabric and maintain standard group practices. And we have here the gangs. Characteristic of a gang, we have organization, leadership, turf, cohesiveness, and purpose. So organization, the creation of administrative body. So when you say organization, naagyo na siya mga tao na structure. So leadership, it could be, it's like a mafia styles. So na top, then naada yun mga members. Turf, particular territory or neighborhood crossing turf boundaries. Yung mga gangs, lagi na sila ang gitawag ng territorial. Mura siya ang iro. Kung ahan niya giihian, iyan ang territory. Kinala po ang gang, dili po mangihi. Ang gang, naa sila own territory nga lugar. Dira sila. Kung naimusunod silang territory, nga lahi member sa gang, ay alam na gubot pa sila. The next is cohesiveness. Share privacies with one another that they're non-delinquents to believe they can trust their friends and their trust of their friends. Then purpose, delinquent gangs have been typically thought to exist for the purpose of committing an offense. So gangs, wala di ka-exist na gangs na ilang purpose is for peace. No? Pag yun, gubot, yun na. The next one is, we have the traits. The trait of a gang, we have competitiveness. Child growing up in a slum area learns to compete for scarce resource for survival. Mistrust. Child learns that he cannot have confidence in others who will always put themselves first. And then self-reliance. Individual learns to count on no one but himself, that any assistance has cost. Then social isolations, that's one of the traits of the gang. The individual learns not to become emotionally attached to others, for they who will only lead pain. And we have survival instinct. The characteristic is solidified by young person experience of the losers in neighborhood who give him added impetus not to be dragged down. And the last one, we have defiant air. It makes it clear to authority figures that he will not knuckle under. So these are the traits of the gangs. So, kita wa just pakiani. Kalabi na of wala pa na membro, no? Then another one is gang types. Natay social gang. So gang only for little activities involve little drug use like alcohol and marijuana, party gangs. Patuman siyang drug use or sales of foregoing, except vandalisms. Drug sales are designed for finance member persons' personal drug use, either maybe sell party drugs. Serious delinquent gangs engage in serious delinquent behavior, like for instance, drugs are used only for social occasions. Then organized gangs, these are involved in criminality and drug use and sales. So we have here Cheryl Maxon, a noted gang researcher. He finds that gangs can be organized into groups based on their size, based on their age range, duration of experience, territory, and criminal acts. So another typology of Cheryl Maxon's gang typology, it includes traditional gangs. So ang traditional gangs na exist of 20 years or more. So it contains subgroups based on age. Then we have neo-traditional gang. Territorial gang, smaller than the newer than the traditional gang. It may involve traditional gang over times. You have compress, less than 50 members. Collective gang, which is large resembling shapeless mass. Then we have a specialty gang. A crime-focused gang is more on criminal than social. This is considered a smaller size na sila. Then, isa lang gibutang nila din is under drug territories. Maligya sila drug by territorial ilaha. Then, drugs, youth, and delinquency. This is very important, not just only for youth, but of course, katong mga adolescents. The more adolescent uses drugs, the more likely it is that he come an attention to the juvenile justice. The more adolescents uses drugs, including alcohol, the more likely he become physically or psychologically dependent on drugs. The more that the adolescent is physically or psychologically dependent on drugs, the more likely it is that he will commit delinquent acts to support drug habits. Gid siya ko kanang more on geared towards gid siya sa problema. The more the adolescent is physically and psychologically dependent on drugs, the more it is that he will become involved highly delinquent peer cultures. So understanding all of these things, makita ninyo, masabtan ninyo nganong daghay ka-involved sa mga droga because of their exposures, because of their associations to others. Then family and home, so it's more on regarding the husband and wife, an unmarried or head of the family, their situations. Gender and delinquency, so we have here female and the male. In socialization, when it comes to female, sustained relationship, then the male is the independent. When it comes to aggressiveness, less aggressive ang babae, mas agresibo ang lalaki. So sa babae, consider as blame self. You say you blame yourself, while male is externalized anger. Pag lagi na siya through socialization, kasagaran sa lalaki kay may pagawas nilang kasuko. Cognitive is have superior verbal ability, while the male has have superior verbal or spatial ability, or visual, I mean. Speak earlier, then sa babae, lalaki are better at math than they read better. For personality, they have low self-esteem, higher self-esteem ang lalaki. Self-aware, ang lalaki materialistic, then have better attention span, dahil ang lalaki is lower attention span. Dili kay papansin, ang babae may sige papansin when it comes to personality. No? Tinood ba na? Then masculinity hypothesis. So masculinity hypothesis, this view that the women who commit crimes have biological and psychological traits similar to those men who commit crimes. For gender schema theory, it also asserts that our culture polarized males and females, forcing them to exclusively gender roles or feminine or masculine. So these gender scripts provide the basis for deviant behaviors. So if you are studying already about juvenile delinquency and related to your research, so you might use this particular theory, which is somehow you think applicable to your study. We have chivalry hypothesis, we have paternalism hypothesis, view that low female crime and delinquency rates are a reflection of leniency, which police treat female offenders. So that's the result of their study. Excuse me. Premenstrual syndrome, which was the direct cause of relative rare instance female violence, according to early bio theories. The link of PMS and delinquency can popularized by Catherine Ton. So then we have liberalism, and we have also critical feminists. Hold that gender inequality stems from unequal power of men and women. So conflict, there's always a conflict between men and women in these particular instances. So power John Hagan by John Hagan holds gender difference in delinquency rate are function of class difference and economic conditions that influence structural of the family. So we have also another egalitarian families. The husband and the wife will share power at home. The daughter will gain kinds of freedom similar to that sons and the law violating behavior mirror to their brothers. So, dire, husband and wife share power at home. So, as what I've said, the husband will considered as the, kumbaga, haligi ng tahanan. Okay? Then we have theories. So, theories of delinquency. Again, I mentioned this one kanina buntag. Ang theories is actually separate. Separate siya sa na topic. 'Di ba natay mo yung subject na kuan kaning crime and causation of crime. Am I correct? Did I get sakto ba? Hello?
Wala, ma'am. Causation of crimes. Wala.
Unsa yung nibalik na kabagol. Okay. Unsa yung namoy topic na katong theories, katong bitong mga gipang discuss puro theories lang. Namoy subject ana, namoy course ana.
Ethics in values, ma'am.
Again.
Ethics and values.
Ethics and
values.
Ethics and values didto giapil ang kuan kaning theories. Or separate to about to siya sa kanang professional code of conduct and ethical standards of police. So well anyway, sige doon ayan niyo libugay yung kaugalingon. Okay. So actually, this is one of the course under criminology program kaning theories of crime causation. So or the different theories which will explains the presence of crime kato bitaw sa criminal etiology. So akong giingon ganina nga di gyud ato malikayan nga makatouch gyapon tag theory ug naagid tendency nga naay magbalik-balik. Kay maura man gyud ni atong field. Mura ni siya ang isa ka program. Then for theories of delinquency, we have here social disorganization theory. So dili lang ni siya maka-explain lang it's not just only focusing on the adult. It also explain also the minor or kaning mga child. Ako lang ning iklaro. Kaning mga theory nato nga mag-explain sa causes of crime, wala ni siya nag-focus lang class sa mga adult offender. Apil ani maka-explain nga no maning mga minor de edad nga nag-commit man sila o nga involved man nilang kaugalingon sa mga dili maayo nga ginabuhat. So usa na siya. So atong una-unahon is a social disorganization theory. So a social disorganization theory, this is made by Shaw and Mackay or Henry Mackay. So recognized in 20th century by the sociologists. According to social disorganization theory, disorganized areas cannot exert social control over acting out youth. These areas can be identified by the relatively high level of change, high fear, instability, incivility, poverty, and deterioration. And these factors have direct influence on the areas of delinquency rate. So I would like you to imagine, class, area and neighborhood which is increase of fear, increase of poverty, taas of level of crime rate. And what did you expect for the children who are being exposed to in that particular area? So muna siya ang social disorganization. So here, poverty. So to explain further, poverty develop of isolate poor neighborhoods, lack of conventional social opportunities, or racial and ethnic discrimination to social disorganization. So when it happens, there is a breakdown of social institution and organizations such as family and school, and lack of informal social control. Okay, sa community palang daan, wala naman yung conventional means, wala naman kay opportunity dito. So ma-break na gina siya. That's why it's considered as disorganized na dayon. The next is, if there is breakdown of social control, dira na dayon ma-develop ang gangs. Dira na dayon mag-grupo-grupo. So peer group replaces family in social institution. Nga naman mo replace ang peer group sa family. Kay diri palang daan sa social disorganization, ang family palang wala na, buwak na siya. The next is criminal areas. So criminal areas, neighborhood becomes crime-prone areas na din siya. stable pockets of delinquency develop, and lack of collective efficacy. And next one here is cultural transmission. So the older youth pass their norms, focal concerns to their younger generation. There is already a cultural transmission. Once they created a gang, then it geared towards kaning pinakakuan, criminal career. Most youths age out of delinquency, marry and raise families, and few remain in life of a crime. So, na may tendency pod na natay gitawag na I don't know if you encounter this one kani gitawag na tuog life course theory, or there is a transition sa imuhang life that change you to become bad person to good person. Actually, there's no such as bad. Involved lang siguro ka being influenced, but not totally you are a bad individual. So should we say involved in illegal activities? Then there is a turning point in your life that you meet someone that changed your life eventually. So, napo inana, ha? Dili pasabot na kuan, walay kabaghuan. You have to open for changes. Kinaagi siya changes, class. So, do not close doors for those minors na kuan, wala man na siya kabaguan, inani na yang ginabuhat, exposed na siya inani. So, ayaw, kay you are belong to those who labeled, and dili pud siya maayo. Because you studied criminology, you studied this program, and most of all, you have to understand sa uban pa lang, mas ikaw mo'y nakasabot kumpara sa uban. So, do away with that. Next is, okay, Albert Cohen. We have the first man who attempted to find out the process of beginning the delinquent subculture. So, delinquent subculture emerged in slum areas in the large American society. So they are rooted in the class differential of parental aspirations, excuse me, child rearing and classroom standards. So the relative position of youngster family and social structure determines the problem a child will have to face out through the life. So an anomy theory. So anomy we have here by Emil Durkheim. I think you're familiar with Emil Durkheim. So, an anomy theory, for a while, nabalik ta. Wala. So, when you say anomy, it is normless produced by rapid shifting of moral values. This occurs when a personal goal cannot achieve using available means. So, anomy refers also to the breakdown of social norms and its condition where the norms no longer control the activities of the member of the society. So individual now cannot find their places. So man siya, they cannot find their place in society without clear rules to help them guide. To help them guide, okay. So these changing conditions as well as adjustment in their life that leads them for dissatisfaction and that leads them to conflict and deviance. Since dili man nila na maplaster na ilang kaugalingon, they wanted to reach these goals but they cannot do it anymore. No? So they will make any available means. They feel that there is already a breakdown. Then next is we have strain. Magbalik-balik na gitag strain. Okay, dili gyud nato kay kanigid sila class. Mo pud sila magbalik-balik sa board exam. Anomy, strain theory, mga kanang mga theories, mo ra gyud sila. They contend that certain classes are denied legitimate access to cultural determined goals and opportunities, resulting frustrations, illegitimate activities, or rejection of societal goals. So, as what I've said, ang strain theory is also, according to Merton, most people share common values and goals and legitimate economic. So, since they cannot reach this particular goals, then it somehow make them ways in order for them to achieve the goals. So, to clearly emphasize, we have here the figures. We have here, okay, So poverty here is, again, same development of isolated underclass culture and so on. Then maintenance of conventional rules. So lower class people, decaying neighborhood. Then kanus musulod ang strain if there is lack of opportunity coupled with desired conventional success produces strain and frustration. So ibig sabihin, dili niya makuha ang iyang gusto sa maayo na pamaagi palangdaan. So dira mo sulod ang strain. Then we have formation of gangs. Youth form law violating groups to seek alternative means to achieving that success nga iyang gipangita. Then crime and delinquency. So yung method nila, it could be by method of violence, it could be by method of pagpangawat, or maybe any illegal activities which will supplement makuha nila ilahang gusto. Then towards criminal careers. Na siya. Then general strain theory by Robert Agnew suggested that criminality is direct result of negative affective states, the anger, the frustration, the adverse emotions that emerge the way negative or destructive social relationships. So, kani siya, natay mga sources. So, it can be failure to achieve positive goals. Another is disjunction of expectation and achievement. So, nakay gusto, kumbaga expectation versus reality, you did not get what you want. An achievement, samot wala nimo na achieve ang imong gusto. It removal of positive value stimuli from the individual. Sometimes, halimbawa, you feel strain, namatay ang mama or closest friend, then that turns you into lahi. Kumbaga, that positive people na-remove sa imuha. Then we have strain of presentations of negative stimuli, the influences of other sources, other people. Then opportunity. Okay. So opportunity here is the delinquent subculture according to Cloward and Olen. So flourishes the lower class and take particular forms so that the means of illegitimate success are no more equal disturbed than the means of legitimate success. So illegitimate success and legitimate success clearly give us the idea of how will you achieve these particular goals in legitimate ways. Then next one is kaning types of gangs according to Clowen. So criminal gang, we have violent gang and retreatist gangs. So ang criminal gang, they are emerged in areas where conventional or non-conventional values of behavior is integrated by a close connection of illegitimate and legitimate businesses. So, ang kuha ni niya is type of gang is stable. Older criminals serve as a role model and they teach necessary criminal skills to the youngsters. Kanimoy, lisod kayo. Conflict or violent gang, of course, non-stable, non-integrated, and this gang aims to find reputation of toughness and destructive violence. And retreatism is through, they will do, kumbaga here, known as double failures. Double failures equal unsuccessful and legitimate as well as illegitimate means. That's why they are double failures. Kaning class conflict theory is more on social and economic forces operating within the society. So katong mga problema, halimbawa, mga policies, when in fact, katong problem between rich and the poor, something like that. So here in the third, we have criminal justice establishment aims imposing standards of morality and good behavior created by the powerful of the whole of the society. Labi na kaniyo, the criminal justice system and criminal law are thought to be operating in behalf of the rich and powerful social elites, resulting the policies aimed for controlling the poor. Kani siya nga portion, then there would be always a class conflict. Para raman na sa mga dato. Kami nga pobre, luoy kayo. So, kana pa lang na statement, that is conflict already. The theory of oppressions. So here, proposed that serious juvenile delinquency is product of oppression of children by adults. So the maltreatment of children has been found highly correlated with both serious and moderate delinquency as well as other problem of the behaviors. Then association, I think you are kanila gid kayo ang pinaka kuan kanato. Asserts that criminal behavior is learned primarily within interpersonal groups. So, kaning ni Edwin Sutherland. So, you learn behavior because of your association to other people, not just through imitate what you see because you associate. Ikaw mismo, imong kaugalingon, nakipag-associate ani nga tao, then this person, from this child, he learn or she learn out from this. So, muna siya association. Lahi ang learning man good, it could be through visual ang learning. It could be what you hear and what you see, but the association, differential association, really there is a need for kumbaga you link yourself. Nagid kay mismo kuan kaning nakay panagkita sa tapos out from that you learn something. So social learning, the family may serve as a training ground for violence in child perceived physical punishment and norm during conflict situation of others. So social learning theory. So if you this you review that behavior is modeled through observation. So observation, it could be with directly or indirectly. So pwede siya na eye contact or indirectly through media. Muna akong gingon learning. Whereas katong differential association theory, it should have a direct intimate contact or contact with that person, not through media. Ano siya ang difference nila. Inyo lang ko anon timanan, okay? Then drift theory, if of course juveniles are bound to observe the laws, pag dili nagali ni sila, pag if that would have a problem, then wala na nag-met, and that's why nalay tawag na to og drift. Di na mo tuo sa balaod. Labeling, so balik taon sa labeling, no? So again, ang labeling is something to do with you are labeled as a troublemakers, juvenile delinquent, mentally ill, junkie, and more. Because of your involvement, you are negatively labeled as this name. So, ato na siyang supposedly kayan. Okay? Branding. It's like branding. Social control. This is perspective that state the member society form bonds. In kaimong bonds, we have your parents, your friends, the churches, the schools. So, imong ties ani niya is very strong. So, if this will be break, then eventually it gears toward criminal behavior. Kumbaga, kung wala na kay believe sa halimbawa kaning mga conventional activities, wala kay belief sa your education, nga mahuman ka, then definitely kumbaga your commitment to your family kana siya wala na siya. Kumbaga the bonds itself will be break. The tendency is criminal behavior. Self-derogation theory by Kaplan states that all motivated to maximize our self-esteem, motivation to confirm will be minimized by family, by school, by peers, interaction, and devalue our sense of self-interactions or behavior may be defacing of self-enhancing, self-derogations. So, kani siya naagya po ni siya sa book ni Sigil. Interactional theory, So by Terence Thornberry, weakening the child's social bonds fundamentally cause social delinquency. Weakening the child's social bonds, kumbaga the bonds of the family, the friends is so weak, the conventional means, then that is fundamental cause for delinquency. Okay. For social class in any races, sex, neighborhood, or characteristics, naatay bonding. The bonding variables include attachment to parents, commitment to schools, and belief in conventional values. So the same arrow goes down towards the learning variables. So learning variables, if this races, sex, neighborhood, or characteristic goes towards association with delinquent peers, formation of delinquent values, then it geared towards delinquent behavior. If you've noticed in this area nga naay breakage, wala ang kaning arrow niya naputol. So meaning, if there is a breakage of bonds or attachment to parents, commitment to school, belief in conventional activities, it's the same thing. It geared towards delinquent peers or delinquent behavior. So, nang makita ninyo diyan muna siya ang mo clearly explains about na akong discussed a while ago. Self-control suggests, in short, that deviance simply result from individual inability to effectively control our impulses. So it also argues that the absence of self-control rather than presence of some force or factors such as poverty, enemy, opportunities for deviance, delinquent peers, to definition that leads to deviance or deviancy. Excuse me. This is something to do with link of formation of independent subcultures. Moving on, so we have here poverty, we have lack of opportunities, feeling of oppression, to culture. So inner city youth are socialized to value middle class goals ideas. Excuse me. Then there is a subculture. The subculture now is the black opportunities, the prompt formation of the groups. Then there is what we called as the next one is success goals. So the gangs provide alternative method of gaining success by venting anger for others. Then crime and delinquency, the new methods of gaining success involves low violating behavior. Then this is criminal career, wherein some gang boys can parlay their status into criminal careers. So it started with still a poverty. So there is always a reason of why it gears towards crimes and delinquency as far as cultural deviance is concerned. So, in structural functionalism theory, appeal diri ang rational choice. So, our rational choice theory, of course, we all know that we are a rational being. We know already what is right and what is wrong. Pero, kasagaran, ang juveniles do not choose most rational actions. So, naka-underline yun na diha, no? Their values are different from adult. Their motives are different from the adult criminal. So, adolescents are also notorious for not thinking before they act. These actions, which constitute delinquency, may come as result of acting against authority or to rebel against cultural norms and goals. So kita as an adolescent, we almost think before we do actions. Pag kaning mga juveniles, the rational choice is really an issue to them. Routine activities, I think this is more on involving of the motivated offenders, suitable target, and capable guardians. So this is a diagram. So you have lack of capable guardians. If there is a motivated offender, then there is a suitable targets, then definitely crime and delinquency occurred. So with the adult, the same na sila og explanation. But if there is a presence of capable guardian, then although there is a, halimbawa, there is a motivated offender, then kung sa adult pa lang ni, if there is a motivated offender, then there is a presence of capable guardian. Although you have suitable target, then dili gyud na siya mahitabo nga naagay crime. No, pero disconnected of these three, so there would be possibility na naagyoy delinquency. Mananataning learning, it's more on learning good behavior from bad behaviors, learning theories. So showing you this diagram, learning through norms and values can be transferred through learning experience, then deviant values such as parents, then towards exposure, you are exposed to deviant norms, then next is delinquent behavior. So youth learns the techniques, the attitude, the values, the perceptions they sustain to sustain delinquent behaviors. So learning, of course, it from your peers, then such exposures, then eventually. So intelligence and IQ, this is talking about the nature and the nurture. No? So nature holds that low intelligence are genetically determined and inherited, while nurture, it's more on holds that intelligence is partly but mostly sociological negative environment factors encourage delinquent behavior and depress. Kung baga, the nurture is more on the outside. The nature of delinquency, incidence of delinquency accelerate age of 13 and peaks 17. Then we have mostly here prevalence termination is 18 to 19. It's more on the nature of delinquency. Then this is a pathway to delinquency. Now, the authority conflict pathway, you have overt pathway, and you have covert pathway. So in authority conflict, it started with a stubborn behavior, to defiance or disobedience, then authority avoidance. So in overt pathways, it started with a minor aggression, it goes to physical fighting and violence. For covert pathway, to minor covert behavior, to property damage, padulong gihapon sa violence. These are the pathway to delinquency. Okay, are you still there with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are down into parental authority, or we have patria potestas. So in parental authority, this is the sum total of the right of the parent over the persons and property of their children. Children shall always observe respect and reverence toward their parents and are obliged to obey them as long as children are under parental authority. So muna siya ang klaro kayo. Then, in case of absence of or death of either parent, shall continue to exist parental authority, and separation of parents and parental authority shall be exercised by the court. Then in case of death, the absence or unsuitability of parents shall be exercised in the following. Halimbawa, surviving grandparent, the oldest brother or sister over 21 years of age, unless unfit or disqualified, and those who are child's actual custodian over 21 years of age, unless again unfit or disqualified. So we are down now into the laws of juvenile delinquency. So medyo hapit-hapit na siya, gamay na lang, no? Doon na lang siya. So atong law sa juvenile delinquency started with the PD 603. So during sa muang time, wala pa magunang 9344 pero kani siya perminti gud siya gagawas. Perminti ni siya ni gawas, gibali-balihon ni siya og kuan. Child and Youth Welfare Code, yan na bitaw gibali-balik pangutana. Pero karon I don't know. I cannot say. Okay, since as what I've said, this is more on recall, simple recall. And it does not measures kung baga katong higher order thinking skills. So basically, dili ko sure kung mo kuan ni siya. Pero we have to know all of these things also. So PD 603, ito yung Child and Youth Welfare Code. Decree was signed by our former President Ferdinand Marcos December 10, 1974 and took effect June 10 of 1975. Parang 6 months. January, March, April, May. After 6 months, it took effect. After he signed, after 6 months, the law took effect. Okay? So the juvenile delinquency law, here we have Children and Youth Welfare Agency. So na siya yung mga gipang-define. No? Kung tanaw ninyo na nga bala, pwede mo no maka-print ana nga balaod. So, una na siya diadto gitanan kaning child caring institutions. So, mo ni siya ang clear definitions dito. Ako ra po ni siyang gikopya. Kaya unsa may naa dito ako rang gikopy. Provide 24-hour resident group care service for physical or mental, spiritual well-being of 9 or more mentally gifted dependent. Abandoned, neglect, handicap, or restore youthful offenders. Panggigamit sa una. Then, these institutions' primary purpose is education for child caring institutions. The next one is, what's next? Detention. So, still naagya po niya siya dito, detention. Detention is 24-hour child care institution provide short-term care for youthful offenders awaiting for their dispositions. Shelter care, one provides temporary protection gihapon for those who are abandoned by their parents, dangerous conditions. Wala slide makita.
Na, ma'am.
Ay, nagkuan. Bagol. Bakit walang slides? You cannot see my slides?
Makita, ma'am.
Kindly look for the signal kuan. Kaning Hamid, Mr. Hamid. Sabi niya kasi walang slide na makita. Okay, sa masing signal ni mo na dong, ha? Sige lang. Kaya again, kani siya naani siya para makuan mo hanak ko gikuha. Naani siya sa PD 603. Ma-type na to yun sa kuan. Okay na daw. Kadagan pag lamok anya mong lugar. Oh my God. Next, receiving home. We have family types which provide temporary shelter for 10 to 20 days during the period under observations by the DSWD. Then we have another one here, nursery. Child care institution for 6 or more children below 6 years of age or part of 24-hour care except for licensed primarily medical educational services. Then maternity home, of course, from the word maternity, para na siya sa mga burros. Rehabilitation center for the youthful offenders who receive rehabilitations or disturbed children. For reception and study center, this is intended to receive for study or diagnose for temporary problems for the purpose of determining appropriate care for the children. child placing agency, institution or person assuming care, custody protections, and maintenance of children for placement in child caring institutions. So the next one is we have here dependent, abandoned, and neglected children. Ito yun lang yung definitions. It can be found also there. Ang dependent children, one who is without parent. One who parent, uh, wala na sila support, not siya dependent. Dependent child. Abandoned, one who has no proper parental care or guardianship. At least period of 6 months. Then neglected, so they are being neglected of their basic needs, deliberately unattended, inadequate. So occur in two ways, physical. So physical here we have an emotional for a while. Nalubat na pud ko. For a while. Okay. Excuse me. Charge sa tangamay. Okay, good. Excuse me. Mentally retarded, physical handicap, emotional disturbed, and mentally ill children. So, ito lang yung definition nila. Mentally incompetent, mentally subnormal, retarded, intellectual from birth or early age. So, retarded at maturities. Then another one we have here, mental retardation as to custodial group. So this is talking about their at least of their IQs, no? So 25. So trainable group, yung members ng group dito is more on IQ is from 25 to 50. Belong to this group shows mental level, rate development, and 1/4 to 1/2 average child. Trainable group. So unable to acquire higher academic skills but can usually acquire basic skills for living to reasonable degree. So another one here is educable group. The IQ ranges from 50 to 75 and the intellectual development is approximately 1/5 to 3/4. Then borderline, yung IQ nila is highest group of mental retarded. IQs is from 75 to 89. So meaning to say, this particular will receive extra care or guidance or considerations. Physically handicapped children. We have emotionally disturbed children. Of course, handicapped, those are crippled, mute, blind, and otherwise. Emotionally disturbed, yung mga may emotional problems, unable to maintain the social normal relationship with others. Mentally ill children, those children who have mental or behavioral disorders. Then disabled children, these are the considered as mental retarded. They are physically handicapped, personally disturbed, and we have here severe mental ill children. So we have a law here. Another one is 7610. So this law is otherwise known as Special Protection for Children Against Child Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act, approved in June 12, 1992. So it defines a child also which is below 18 years of age. Then evaluation, they are qualified physicians, psychologists, psychiatrists. They are found incapable of taking care of themselves fully because of their mental or physical disabilities because of the abuse. So child abuse here define an act deliberately inflicting physical injuries to a child. So I have here some types of child abuse, physical abuse or maltreatment. So from the word physical, there is always a inflection to sa bata. So it's either na siya yung makakuha siya laceration, fractures, suffocating, na siya. Child battering, also known as child battering. So, or maltreatment. Another one is psychological abuse. Any harm to a child, emotional or intellectual, but not limited to cursing, rejecting, or use degrading words for other similar acts. It's psychological. Child neglect, again, this is under 7610. You can find these terms in Republic Act 7610, by the way. Then any unreasonable deprivation of child basic needs, such as their food, clothing, shelters, and other medical cares. Okay? So, tananaan siya sa ito ang RA 7610. Then sexual abuse. From the word sexual abuse, I think you know already this one. There is a involvement of child in sexual activity with an adult. So, daghan kayo ng mga cases na nakaroon. It also includes employment of the use of persuasion, inducement to a child to engage and assist another person in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct, or molestations, prostitutions, and incest with children. You know what? This is very important also knowing all these things. Okay? Because if you are the student, halimbawa may neighbor kayo, di ba? Sometimes they will ask you regarding these things. So it's very also important that you have a background kay Nana. Then sexual exploitation. These are the children, whether male or female, for money, profit, or any other consideration due to coercion or influence by adult, syndicated group, or indulgence or sexual intercourse or lascivious acts. That is under sexual exploitation. Then child labor exploitation, example ani, there are minors that are exposed in the occupation, like for example, they are being drivers, stone splitters, operators, and equipments, operators of farms and equipments, works in slaughterhouses, lifting, handling, and carrying or heavy loads. So these are the prohibitions that is being mentioned under the number Adole Department Order number 4. Child trafficking, engaging or dealing with children involving, but not limited to buying or selling a child. So, there are a lot of cases involving child trafficking case. Come on, nawala ko. Then, we will though proceeds to, na siya. Causes of child abuse and neglect, natay parent factors, child factors, and we have environmental factors. So, kani siya ang mga hinungdan. Parent is increase of likelihood of being abused. Ang child is characteristic of children or child increase of likelihood of abuse. Ang environment also we have includes physical, social, and economics. And increased likelihood of abuse. So, child abuser, you know what is child abuser? Those are person regardless of age, sex, race, creed, or color, deliberately commits or perpetrates any act defining must constitute child abuse. So, it could be family member, a relative, a neighbor, a friend, a teacher, babysitter, or child care. So, pwede basta maabot siya sa definition. So, types of abuser, natay parental incompetent abuser. So, these are the practice or disciplining their children in the same way that they are being disciplined by their parents before. So, that is type of abuser, parental incompetent. Then, next is situational abuser. Some parents only abuse their children when they are confronted with a particular situation. So, kumbaga na nang naarab ito sa kapungot na diretso. So they non-abusive but fly off to handle when some particular circumstances develop. Then accidental abuser exercise poor judgment in parenting decision. They administer enemas and children to discipline to them. Then subcultural abusers, these are the group of people who share number of values, norms, and attitudes in common. So the member here believed that committing violence on children against children is inherent positive value, punishing sons to make them a good Christians. So that is subculture abusers, mga beliefs nila. Self-identified abusers, these are the parents, know they are abusive. So they know already, they're aware of that. Then they know that if their children rearing practices were known to the authorities, they would be censured. Then make their parents want to stop abusing children but cannot. Placing high expectation on the child is pushing him if he fails to do it. Oh, nawala. Then another one is institutional prescribed abusers. So the institutional prescribed abuser class, they occurs in the institution because of the belief on which these institutions are being grounded. So reporting to child and neglect. So in some ways, the simplest way is, of course, responding to child abuse or neglect. So kani siya, child abuse prevention, natay primary, natay secondary, and we have tertiary prevention. So in primary, always remember, ang program niya is to eliminate the root. Then secondary is measures to keep the child safe from exploitation. Ang tertiary is their actions are in the situation in which the abuse is to prevent recurrence. So, kumbaga, already been abused to prevent the recurrence or the same acts. So, to prevent being, kumbaga, there is a repetitions. Then, Republic Act 7658 is an act prohibiting the employment of children below 15 years of age in public and private undertakings. So, this law was approved in November 9, 1993 and took effect in November 24, 1993. Days lang yung kuan. Then, this law especially amended Section 12 of Article 8 of the RA 7610. So, children below 15 years of age shall not be employed except when a child work directly under the sole responsibility of his parents. So, kani magud siya, mo ni ang katubitong, di ba na may mga artista, so dili sila binded. Ani aware na ang mga ano daan, kung sa mga angay o dili angay buhato, labi na katong mga artista nga mga bata. Then when child's employment or participation in public entertainment, so napod siya their information or cinema, theater, radios, so sa may possible, it should be there is approval from the DOLE. So muna siya ang mga guidelines. Like for example, if the child is employed, halimbawa, so kung gingon mo nga artista, nga na maka-earn og money, so na siya guidelines sa may buhaton for the safety and security of the child para po sa mga welfare sa isa ka bata. If the above exceptional cases where child may be employed, the employer shall first secure before engaging the child. So, a permit ikan sa Department of Labor to observe observance of the requirements. So, the next is RA 8369. So, this is talking the Family Court Act of 1997. So, kani siya, it's more on sa may role sa family court. Ayan, jurisdiction, exclusive jurisdiction to hear the cases. Sa may case niya, katong mga criminal case where one or more of the accused is below 18 of age but not less than 9 years of age. Then, provided further that the minor is found guilty, the court shall promulgate sentence and ascertain any civil liability. The sentence, however, shall be suspended without the need for application pursuant to the PD 603 or Child Youth Welfare Code, or now is we have the 9344. Then another one is, wala nang move. We are hapit na ta. Petition for adoption of children and revocations thereof, appeal siya dito. Complaints for annulment of marriage, declaration of nullity of marriage, those relating to the marital status, still under sa family court. Petition for support and acknowledgements, dayon summary judicial proceeding brought by provisions of EO 209 na family court. Kani siya, muna siya ang kibali jurisdictions of the family courts. So, everything is being stated there. So, cases for domestic violence. We have here women, may domestic violence, of course. Mostly it involves the children and the women, or the wife and the children. Wait, what are you doing? So that is under the family court. So ang appeals niya, the appeals of this is to the ordinary appeals from the ordinary RTC. And absence of the family courts, the fifth, we have the court shall hear and decide case falling under jurisdiction of family courts. So the